Are Ikoria pre-releases even going to happen? It's hard to say. With the coronavirus, nothing is for certain, but we're going to move forward as if they are, because it's something to look forward to, and if nothing else, gives us a time to appreciate all the work that has gone into this set. It looks fantastic. There's some crazy awesome new creatures, some fun new mechanics with some fairly confusing interactions, but we're going to break that stuff down so you know exactly what you need to know to at least play at your pre-release, and of course take that thing down. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. This is the Ikoria pre-release guide. Let's get into it. Alright, for the mechanics in this set, first is a returning mechanic, Cycling, which says pay a cost, discard it, and draw a card. Now if it's a featured mechanic, you can believe there's going to be some other cards that give us additional value when we cycle a card, or some cards that when we cycle it have an additional effect, like putting a trample counter on another creature, which leads us into our next mechanic, keyword counters. Now there are still creatures that have the flying keyword, but on Ikoria, sometimes a creature's abilities are malleable or transferable, so you can do more than just enhance a creature with a 1/1 counter, you can give them keyword abilities. This set will have keyword counter tokens too, so you can punch them out and use those as needed. The first new mechanic is Companion. Each deck may have one declared or chosen companion. If you decide to play with a designated companion, that card must be declared before anything happens, even before you roll dice to see who goes first. If you have a designated companion, that card will state a deck building restriction you have to abide by. So if you pull Kahira, the Orphan Guard, and want to use it as your companion, you can only play with the named creature types. You could not have any human creatures or fairy dragons, for example. If you cannot abide by that deck restriction, then it cannot be your companion. It can, though, still just be included in your deck along with any other companions, just like any other creature. So what's the benefit of having a companion? The benefit is your companion starts the game in the sideboard, and you can cast it from there once each game. So you essentially get to start with an awesome extra card every game. That's very powerful, but may be difficult to pull off at a pre-release depending on your card pool. Once cast though, it is treated like any other card in your deck until the end of the game, and it goes back to your sideboard. Now on to the other new mechanic, Mutate. Yeah, things are about to get a little hectic. Mutate reads, if you cast this spell for its mutate cost, put it over or under target non-human creature you own. They mutate into the creature on top, plus all abilities from under it. So to break this down, you must own the creature, not just control it. It must be a non-human target, and any creature that fits this description can be mutated, including token creatures. If the spell resolves, you decide to put the mutate card on the top or bottom. The top card is the relevant power and toughness, as well as the color, creature type, and mana cost. Ignore the others underneath. The only thing the bottom cards contribute are their abilities, if any. You will often want the strongest creature on top, since the abilities are the same regardless of positioning. However, having lower power or toughness may help in specific situations to avoid some removal spells, or General Kudro here who is looking to sacrifice whatever it takes to get rid of those larger monsters. When our mutate creature spell resolves, it does not enter the battlefield as a new thing. It instead mutates the target creature. It changes that creature into something different. So if the new mutant creature was tapped, it stays tapped. If it has counters or was enchanted, all of those remain on that same creature because it is the same creature. A creature can also mutate multiple times, which can be very useful because you will often see abilities that read, when this creature mutates, do something cool. So each time you mutate it, you get more triggers and more value. Basically, if the spell resolves, you most likely have a stronger, better creature with more abilities. But if the creature you're targeting with mutate is destroyed or is no longer a valid target, the mutation spell simply enters the battlefield as a regular creature. It does not fizzle the mutate creature spell. So it's not quite as risky as you may have initially thought, but I'm sure you're also now wondering all kinds of what-if type scenarios. Let's not get too caught up in that, as long as you know how to mutate your creatures, what's relevant for combat, and that the whole thing is removed by removal spells. We're all set for the pre-release. Clear as mud, great. Let's get into the color pairings and archetypes. Now the plane of Ikoria has 5 major geographical regions called triomes. It's like a biome, but that biome is shaped by 3 colors of magic, and thus we get the triomes. If you're unaware of the wedge or triome colors, fear not, because Ikoria has plenty of reminders, like these fancy crystals, for example. Or, as you may have already heard about, 1 tricolor cycling land for each triome. There's more though, including these mind-blowing 3-color crazy destructive spells that if you are brave enough to build into your deck and actually cast it, it most likely wins you the game. And last but not least are the biggest and baddest mutant creatures in the set, the apex predator of each triome. Good luck pulling one of these at your pre-release. Now, as epic as these cards are, for the pre-release, let's focus on the 2-color pairings, which all 10 have the usual signpost gold cards for what they do best. So let's fly right into these with Blue-White Aerial Assault, keeping things under control on the ground with flyers in the air. If you've played Blue-White Flyers before, that's what we're up to again. Some of the more obscene creatures are Luminous Broodmoth, Skycat Sovereign, and their companion Yorian Sky Nomad. We also have great interaction and removal with Pacifism, Divine Arrow, and Capture Sphere. Just remember, even though our creature may be pacified and useless in combat, it still gets all the mutate triggers, which may be worth doing in some situations. We also have counter spells and a counter shark, so yeah, we're doing alright. Next up is White-Black, which I'm calling Human Nightmares, as it is the color combo most focused on humans and human tokens, but life is hard on Ikoria. They try and support each other as best they can, like working together to remove threats as efficiently as possible. The nightmare comes in because a lot of the black creatures that mutate are nightmare creature types. I mean, these would terrify me if they were lurking around in my backyard. All you need to know is that if our opponent plays scary things, White-Black will always have some option to take care of it, and our win condition is either to be the last one standing, or go wide with humans and tokens and win through clever combat tactics and opportune instant speed interaction. White-Red is aggressive cycling. Lots of synergy with cycling cards and getting as much value as possible when we do cycle. Also, Winota, Joiner of Forces, is pretty bonkers in this set. Some creatures ping while others create tokens or give us keyword counters like lifelink, and that pairs really well with the big creatures we have in red to help us do damage through combat as well. And of course we have those classic Boros spells that just pump up the entire board so we can keep swinging life away. Finding a way to close out a game should not be too difficult as long as we can keep those synergy pieces around. White-Green is Virtuous Vigilance. We want our creatures to have Vigilance because it means they can attack without tapping, obviously. And then our multicolored cards and Keensight Mentor can make great use of those untapped creatures with Vigilance, and Swallow Whole needs an untapped creature to get ready to engulf its tapped prey. Green-White also has some nifty human interactions while also recreating the plot of King Kong with Kogla the Titan Ape, so if you pull this creature, be sure to have some humans to keep him nice and safe. Green also has the expected tools to make going 3 colors as easy as possible by providing us good ramping and fixing tools with Migratory Greathorn, Fertilid, and Migration Path. Next is Blue-Black Flashing Nightmares. We have Flashing Sharks, which are nightmares unto themselves, but also Slitherwisp and Sea Dasher Octopus are flash options to get in that always useful card draw. Use creatures to surprise your opponent, flash them in as unexpected removal options, or just calm down their bigger threats. Blue also strikes fear into our opponent with the ever-classic counterspells, and black brings in some really nice other removal options. Being able to play your spells on your opponent's turn is always powerful, and Blue-Black Flashing Nightmares is certainly a strong color combo in this set. Then we have Blue-Red, and it's all about non-creature chaos. Basically, instants and sorceries and discarding cards gets us a lot of bonus value. There's a lot to balance here, and I think it's one of the more difficult to pilot for pre-release. We want instants and sorceries in the graveyard to power up our other spells, but we also want to make sure we have creatures and interaction of our own to not fall too far behind, or be left without an answer for our opponent's bombs. Balancing when to use the great removal in red or the tempo in blue versus adding to our own board will be a constant decision, but you can always get cards like Everquill Phoenix, Shark Typhoon, or Ominous Seas to keep big threats coming and overwhelm your opponent in the late game. If you want to play this color combo, I would suggest a lower curve as well so you can potentially play multiple things and be as reactive as possible. Now on to Blue-Green, which is bigger, faster, wider. Kinian is here to lead us, Parcel Beast to ramp us, and Trumpeting Gnar to build our board out. Blue brings in the evasive threats or a way to sneak in our big green creatures, and green brings the pain in the form of both bigger creatures, but also a good amount of interaction as well. This color combo feels very powerful, and again allows us to get into another color if needed. There's also some very strong mutate options, but just don't fixate on those late game plays and forget you also need to have plenty of those lower cost creatures to stay in the game. Black-Red is Menacing Monsters, and we want blocking for our opponent to be quite literally a nightmare for them. We're making opponents sacrifice a creature or have to block with a minimum of 3 creatures instead of 2, and potentially doubling all damage we do as well. Black also has some very difficult creatures to deal with in this set, and when Menace makes them harder to block, we can close out games quickly. We can go aggressive or play more of a controlling game, but be prepared to attack a lot in this color pairing and definitely build in some combat tricks to protect your creatures as well. Next is Black-Green, which is Graveyard Workers, a Boneyard Lurker, and Back for More Show Us. We want our opponent's creatures in the graveyard where they belong. And we don't mind if our creatures are buried because we will dig them up and use them to destroy our opponent's lackluster defenses. Black and green both have plenty of threats and ways to bring stuff back and make our creatures more powerful. Our creatures are great at chewing up chump blockers, or just bring in their own pseudo removal with their mutate abilities. Or play with your food like Shevel wants us to, so we can get bounty counters on stuff and then get max value on destroying our opponent's creatures. And last but not least is red-green. This is Trample Beasts. We have a lot of trample. Proud Wildbonder lets damage go straight to the face. Quartzwood Crasher makes more crashing Trample Beasts, and this color combo has 2 new Planeswalker cards as well. Green and red bring enough removal and interaction, so this color combo feels more interactive and just as powerful as we've seen in the past. Especially if we get Colossification down onto something with Trample. Yeah, that's good game. So I expect it to be a strong color combo provided you have a solid curve. Now moving on to the colorless spells, we don't have many artifacts in the set beyond those Triumph Crystals, but let's check in on each because they all serve a certain purpose. There's a few creatures. Our rare Crystalline Giant you'll always be happy to play in your deck. Farfinder helps find and fix our mana. A Mysterious Egg, ready to mutate into anything. Adaptive Shimmer, which isn't great but could synergize well with Ozolith, which keeps your counters around. And then Sleeper Dart, which basically cycles itself for 2, but we can keep a creature tapped for an extra turn. And lastly, a flash-in trap that we can use to snag some lower toughness creature. And to wrap up the card review, we have a land that works great in just about any deck so long as you have a handful of 4-power creatures. It may not be ideal if you're going 3 colors, but if you are, we also have Evolving Wilds and 10 dual color tap lands coming back too, so going to 3 colors is certainly a possibility. Now into the deck building strategies, if you pull a good companion, which is just about all of them, you should do it. If it's not going to cause too many concessions in your deck, you don't have to play too many underpowered cards. The fact that you get a top tier card essentially in your starting hand every game is great and super strong and limited. So if you can pull it off, you definitely should. Mutate is also very strong, and we want to make sure that when we're building our deck, we want to have some low cost non-human creatures so we can mutate out our bigger creatures on turn 3, 4, and 5. That's going to be our biggest way to get ahead on board. The mutate triggers are probably going to be the deciding factor. If they help us destroy something on our opponent's side or get us ahead, that's going to probably be the deciding factor. It's also going to make removal interesting as to when we use it. Do we want to use the instant speed interaction to prevent the mutation from happening, or get rid of all the cards before the damage happens? You're going to have to figure that out in the moment, but just be mindful that just because they're going to mutate something doesn't necessarily mean you want to kill the target creature right away. We also shouldn't rely on pseudo removal quite as much, and this probably impacts white and blue the most, because enchantment removal in the set usually has cycling, which means it's more main deckable, and thus the pacifism effects probably aren't as permanent a solution to our problem. But overall, when you're building your deck, the focus should be on power and consistency. If you can do that in 2 colors, great. Don't feel like you have to go into 3. But if you are going to go into 3 because it's going to fill that hole or just bring your power level way up, make sure you're prioritizing the mana fixing and don't play with a greedy mana base, because that's like the worst feeling, is just not having the right land at the right time, because you're hoping to get it when you only play like 3 swamps and you've got 14 black cards. You know what I'm saying. But how do you feel about Ikoria? Do you have any questions? If so, let me know down in the comments. I'm sure someone will get to it. But I hope this guide helped you feel ready for the pre-releases that are definitely maybe gonna happen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you to my patrons. Y'all have just been so awesome and supportive in this time. I really do appreciate it. And thank you to Card Kingdom for sponsoring the channel. If you need any Ikoria Behemoths from their layers, sealed or unsealed, go to Card Kingdom, use my link in the description below. They'll let them know I sent you. Really help me out just to let them know that I'm worth sponsoring. Means a lot. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy. Peace.